Welcome, everybody, to the Retirement Success in Maine podcast. My name is Ben Smith. I'm joined by the moose and deer to my black bear, Abby Duty and Curtis Wister. How you doing today, guys?
Good, Ben.
Ben, good. How are you?
I'm great. We are at episode 26. So,
26.
And this is kind of a momentous occasion for us because this is our 1 year anniversary of launching this podcast. So, and you go, the math doesn't quite work out, right, Ben? Because, you've been issuing 2 episodes a month, and now if it's 1 year, why are you on 26? We did throw a couple out to get the thing rolling there. Mm-hmm. But our first episode was, I think, September 10th. And, yep. And so we've done some a lot of work over that time frame, learned a lot as a group, mm-hmm. Kind of refined some skills. So what we wanted to do was maybe just have an episode where we don't have a guest today, was really just to kind of reflect a little bit. Let's kind of reflect on maybe the things that we've learned, some of the things that we thought was maybe unexpected or surprising to us. So that was a lot of what we wanted to just kind of have a little roundtable for you all today on just kind of looking backwards to some shows and maybe highlight some of those shows for you of ones that we think, might be at the must listen if you've not taken a chance yet. Because I know for podcasts, sometimes people they'll skip or, they might tune out for a bit and then come back in. So good part about this medium is you can catch up whenever. But
exactly.
One thing we wanted to kind of start out with in terms of the questions we wanted to tackle today in this review show was what are some of the takeaways that we've learned from our guests over the first 25 episodes. So I will have Abby just kick that off in terms of what she thought was important.
Okay, great. So what I found really interesting is how important good communication is. And it was talked about in a lot of the different episodes that we've had for the past year, and how it's really at the core of good relationships, whether it's with your spouse, a family member, or even your financial advisor. Having good quality communication can help you achieve your goals and what you're looking for out of your retirement. And that was woven through a lot of different episodes. And I think that's a really important takeaway. Communication can kind of get lost sometimes. So making sure that we focus in on good communication is important.
And that was something where I know, let's talk about going forward, but that's kind of a theme that, whether it be Chris McLaughlin with grandkids, right, was one thing that, hey, we just have trouble relating at times.
Right.
And sometimes we just don't know how to start a conversation or to kind of come up with something. So I know a lot of times we've been siloed in topics, but absolutely kind of a nice one there. Curtis, in regards to any things you've taken away from our guests over the first 25 episodes.
Yeah. I think it's going to seem kind of odd that this is my big takeaway here. It's just the looking at retirement, globally and just how in depth it is. And I say it seems odd because, we have these conversations every day with our clients. And for me personally, I'd never really looked at it from my own point of view. So being a part of these conversations, the takeaway for me is, utilizing things like, or people like Diane Walsh at your, the Eastern Area Agency on Aging. And they're all over in any community. And then, things like estate planning and just how in depth that stuff gets. And, we had Stuart Ritter on the show to talk about visualizing your retirement. That's a big step, is just take a minute and think about what you want. Like everyone sees this cliche answer of I want to do what I want, when I want, how I want, which is great, but really knowing what it is you want to do. I guess short answer to your question is just kind of flipping the switch myself and stop trying to, thinking about other people as they go through this process and looking like, wow, I personally had just never thought about some of this stuff. So that was really informative for me.
Well, it's one thing I think it's very romantic to say a lot is this idea of independence money, right? Is that that we all want to accumulate enough wealth that we have so much independence that we can do whatever we want, whenever we want. But the next question, which I think we don't ask ourselves, is, well, what do you want? right? Is to kind of, well, yeah, if you amass the money, but what do you truly want to be? Who's important to you? Where do you want to spend your time? Who do you want to spend your time with? What sort of activities are you interested in? What is a legacy to you? All of those kind of key questions. It's easy just to go, well, let's just work really hard and get the money part solved. But we've really not kind of been reflective and introspective enough to kind of look at ourselves. And that's something where, I think where we can kind of have broken structures at time is there, is that we maybe just haven't looked at what we want. And that's, I think what my takeaway has been is about this whole basically purpose-driven retirement. Is that you get to this point and you go, what is my purpose? And I know we had AJ on, AJ Walker on, and talking about religion, right? And one of the things he's talking about, which I thought was very poignant from a structural perspective, but was, where am I from? Where am I going? And kind of what is my purpose? And so obviously he's talking about using religion as that structure, which you don't have to do. You can, do that introspectively and find this yourself. But I think that's a lot of where what's been pretty cool is listening to this, and whether it be Barbara Babkirk and saying, hey, here's a career coach, and you're going, hey, a lot of people get purpose from career, and they love touching lives through their job and getting paid money to do it. Chris McLaughlin talking about, as we said, with grandkids, right? Chris does an excellent job kind of talking about relating to people, especially with kids. So all of those things I think have been really great. And I like the idea that even with Dr. Geberhad around the stages of aging. That really you can kind of look at retirement, but maybe is a different way to look at it is maybe a physical perspective of as we're aging, and that retirement really is 3 stages. Is that kind of early retirement, mid-retirement, and late retirement, and thinking about our bodies and our mental needs and the things that we want to do, and putting that in the 3 stages and applying that as a bucket. So again, kind of some really cool takeaways there. I want to ask maybe a different question, which is surprising. Like we've kind of obviously go into it with an idea of here's what we want to get out of a show, but what have you been surprised about with our show so far?
So what I found most surprising is how interconnected all of the shows are unintentionally.
Yeah.
So without meaning to, almost all of our shows have had a thread of another show in them without us even realizing it. And when we're doing the show, we're like, oh my gosh, this is just like, they're bringing up this conversation that we had 2 episodes ago. So technology has been a big theme through a lot of the shows, especially right now. We're still in COVID times, and how in retirement, you don't want to become isolated, and how can we use technology to maybe connect with our relatives or help us to stay in our homes longer, or communication has been a theme. There's just been a lot of themes, which I would have never expected how connected everything really, really was throughout the episodes.
I would say too, is from a surprising perspective is, when we schedule these, in terms of interviews, we're at the whim of the people coming on the show, right? So it's not like we can say, hey, it would be excellent if this person, then that person, then that person. Right. And in a perfect world, we could do it. But in this world where we're, especially now, right, where people are busy in lots of different ways, it's almost impossible to do that. But to that point, then you go, wow, here's 2 different topics, again, like almost back to back, where we had, we had Maria McDougall talking about college expenses, and then Barbara Babkirk talking about career. Well, money is something you get from your job, in which maybe to pay for college for your kids. So they go, wow, that was the topics and questions come up about the purpose of these things, and they were very accidental that things just kind of work out that way. So that was a really good one. In terms of what maybe from a surprising perspective is, we're goal-oriented people. I think all 3 of us, right? And our business is all about goal setting and trying to think about things. I think we purposely kind of came into this podcast with like, well, we better get this many listens, or we better have this representation. Otherwise it's not worth it. I think we just said, look, let's put the our clients at the center of it. Let's get their needs at the center of it, their questions, find the expert to match it, and let's kind of not worry about the rest. From a surprise perspective, just to give you as the audience some stats here, in September 2019, when we started a year ago, we had 76 total listens to 3 episodes, which were like high five. We're like, that's great. 76 people cared enough to listen to us talk for, an hour at a time. Like, all right, good job, team. But this last month, again, we're in September now is when this will come out. Well, August 2020. Again, COVID times, people are usually doing podcasts when they're traveling. But even with that, where people aren't traveling as much, we've gone from 76 listens a year ago to 589 listens for the month of August. And so for the first total year, we've had nearly 2,300 full length listens of our shows. So that was really humbling, really just appreciative that people are finding this as meaningful and they're tuning back in and they're listening to more episodes. But what also maybe just extend what's surprising there is it's really not just in the state of Maine. Because you go, okay, retirement success in Maine, who else is going to listen to this thing? So out of that 2,300 listens, 690 of them have been in the state of Maine. So you're like, well, that's a lot of people not in the state of Maine listening to this show.
About Maine in the title.
About Maine, yeah. And so I think that was really interesting was that is like we have a lot of Massachusetts, New York, California. We've hit 39 out of 50 states.
Very impressive.
Okay.
And then on top of that, we've gotten Thailand, the Philippines, Canada, Ireland, Sweden, Germany, Australia, Belgium, and then 8 other more countries. You're like, what? Right? That's amazing. So I think from our end, that was, I think, a surprise of the reach, right? Is to go, hey, if we could get some people in Portland and some people up and down I-95, that would be great. And, people that listen to this, but yeah, I don't know. Do people listen to podcasts, or is this something where the state of Maine people will do? And yeah, so again, from our expectations, we didn't really have goals on that, but pretty cool to kind of see how things have been taken off, and there's some exponentiation that's happening with our listenerships. That's
for sure.
Again, not counting on that happening, and even if just a few people still listen, I think this is worthwhile for us. But again, from a surprising end, I was personally just very flattered that it's resonated out there.
Sure.
Definitely.
So I want to then kind of likewise is kind of then ask the question of what some of the feedback we've received. And I'll just lead that off here because we use Fidelity as kind of to hold our clients' money, right? And so Fidelity, of course, is working with lots of advisors just like us. And, you hear, and our relationship manager out there, she's phenomenal. Her name is Kristen Dorsky. So, Kristen works with advisors like us, really all across the country, and hearing about their practices and how they build things and how they work with clients and how we make ourselves different, all of it. And what's really interesting is these conversations with Kristen. He said, well, so what do you think? What is this good? Like, what is your takeaway from it? And what's been pretty nice from a feedback from what she says is, Ben and Abby and Curtis, you guys as a team, and Wes, and of course, and Chris and Larry and AJ, and your team there, by doing this sort of things and talking about things that matter to your clients. She goes, I'm not seeing any other advisors do this anywhere. So pretty neat that she's saying other advisors are really spending their time on the market, right? Here's where we think the market is, and here's why it's that way, and here's some things to think about for themes. But what was really kind of, she's been giving us some really good compliments and feedback of, hey, what you're doing is really kind of helping to change a conversation or resonate in lots of different ways. So kind of things like that has helped me go, we got to keep going. We got to keep doing more, keep this thing rolling. What have you guys heard from kind of feedback on your end?
So I think when people listen to the podcast, they may forget that we are actually financial advisors on a day-to-day basis. So we are actually having real conversations with real clients daily. And the questions that we get are often episodes in the podcast. And so we try and make it really relatable for people who are approaching retirement or in retirement, to have some of their questions answered. And so I think the feedback that we've gotten, from our Facebook likes, from our page, or even the more listens that we've gained over the 12 months that we've been doing this, really kind of show that at least we're resonating with some people and really kind of hitting on topics that they're interested in. So it's always encouraging to have that feedback. And, if people have suggestions for what they would like to hear on the podcast, we are always welcome to them. So send them over. But I found that very interesting.
Curtis, anything from your end of feedback you've heard from people or friends or family or anybody that you've kind of run into there?
Yeah, it'll kind of piggyback on what Abby just said. And it's not from any one person or people, but kind of looking at those stats as we've seen in the last 6 months specifically as this COVID world has hit. As anyone who's listened to us from episode 1 to 25 and now 26, they will know that we kind of adjusted how we do this podcast as we were all sheltering in place and started using technology like Zoom to record these episodes. And we kind of we started taking these videos that we're doing with these Zoom meetings while we're doing the podcast and putting the material out there in a little different form than just the hour-long episodes. So, Abby mentioned Facebook, and we're on LinkedIn, and we have YouTube, and we're posting these, we take each episode and cut it up into 5, 6, 7, 8, small, short 2-3 minute video clips. And we've seen a positive reaction to that on our social medias. And it's just kind of telling that, maybe, and again, as you mentioned, Ben, people may not be traveling as much, or they certainly weren't in the last 6 months from now. And just seeing how people are still consuming the content just a little differently. So I guess that's kind of some indirect feedback I've seen on the analytics side anyway.
Yeah, and I think kudos to you, Curtis, in terms of kind of helping us drive there, because, to kind of say, hey, what would be really interesting is, hey, just because we have really great conversations and really good ideas, does it mean the only way we can ever deliver that to an audience is ever through a podcast, right? And Abby and Curtis, you guys kind of make fun of me. I use this all the time but you're making your Thanksgiving dinner. Why don't you kind of use the leftovers all week, right? So that's kind of the idea here is why don't you, hey, if anybody, whether it be, Maria McDougall or John Deal from the MIT Age Lab with Hartford Funds, they're saying some really great, important points, right? And they're saying, hey, John Deal kind of saying like the 3 questions that impact aging and going, well, let's really explore them. And hey, if someone says, well, where am I going to get my ice cream cone? And why is that going to be impactful in my retirement? Well, he's got a really great 4-minute answer to that. Yeah. And if that's something that even they just listen to that 4-minute answer can be transformative and help maybe go, wow, I've learned something here out of that. So I like that, we're evolving, right? We're kind of getting better and we're learning ourselves, and, we're not perfect, and we know that, and we're trying to get better at it all the time. But we're getting more and more feedback, and I think we're drawing more people in, and that's which I think our Facebook page has grown from, again, 0 to I think like 620 something followers at this point. So and that continues to grow. So again, we're kind of seeing a lot of really great momentum, and Curtis, from your end too, of working with our producer Zach as well. And Zach's doing a great job kind of editing these episodes and making sure the rhythm's right, and the ums and the ahs, which probably he will just edit that part out and it will sound awkward. But so it's kind of like you're getting this be a really cohesive and rhythmic thing. So it's getting easier for us as we go, which has been pretty nice. I do want to ask a last question here, though, is where do you think we should go next? Because I think that's always the hard question, which we ask ourselves almost every episode. Is like, okay, that was great. What next? So maybe, Curtis, I'll have you start here of where we should go.
So I think your question is sort of the answer to your question, Ben, if that makes any sense. So we've spent a lot of time, in these first 12 months talking about the hows and the whats of retirement. But I think where is an important step. And, as we start talking about, where do I want to retire? Where is my family going to be? Where can I retire? I think in terms of something that's come up on every episode, as Abby was stating, is people wanting to stay in their home as long as they can. And, we talk about that all the time and whether you can do that. So I just think short answer there, I think where is where we should go. And then back to your statistics for a second, you said 39 states we've reached. So I think at a minimum, we should try to hit those other 11 states anyway. We can hit the pod waves in 11 of those states as well.
We're going to shame them into listening to Retirement Success in Maine podcast. I like it. Abby, from your end, where do you think we should be going next for our next, maybe the next 25 or the next episodes here coming up?
So one question that we get a lot is about a retirement community or nursing home, and kind of what's the next step after you maybe can't live in your own home. So finding some resources and having some podcasts about that, I think would be really helpful for people going forward into retirement and later into life.
Yeah. And I'll add to that is I think for looking for the next 25 bridge here, I think you're right. Where is an important part. So, if we can kind of find some people that maybe can talk about either they've moved somewhere, which is pretty interesting, or maybe even they've gone further than just even moving somewhere, is maybe moving away from the US. Mm-hmm. And I know that's kind of cheating by Retirement Success in Maine. In Maine is the key part there. But, I think at the same time is we want to be tackling retirement and purpose and betterment and those sorts of things. But I think from the next 25 perspective is I think if we can have fun here and there, so we might come out with a light episode here and, we have some ideas on that. But also, there might be some serious issues that we want to tackle too. And I know it might not be for everybody, but maybe death is something we should be tackling a little bit more and going through the dying process and thinking about that and putting a little purpose behind, well, how do we want to pass if we had our choice? But maybe there's some fun stuff we want to do too, is we think travel is an area that, is just, I think we all have a lot of dreams around travel. And I think we all have a lot of dreams about having fun more. So I think the more we can kind of do those things. So we want to have a balance of, hey, let's just go all the morbid things like dying and, nursing homes and retirement communities, which they're necessary, right? These are necessary things to go to. But, like we had Bodie Simpson on around grief counseling. But I think there's enough around counseling too, that maybe, there's topics that we struggle with and trying to overcome some of the things that we all have inherent in ourselves. So from a theme perspective, what's pretty fun, as Abby said, is we're getting, we sit down and, well, why do you do this? And where do you want to be in retirement? And we get lots of really great answers. And this whole where in retirement, and somebody wants to retire out of the country. That was a real one. Somebody said, I want to really investigate retiring, but I don't know what it's like. And I don't know if I need a visa, and I don't know if I can afford it. And how does money work with currency? All of those things. And they become well, that's pretty easy then to jot down some questions and let's go track somebody down.
Yeah.
Right. So that's been kind of the fun part for us. So obviously we're doing our anniversary show. Want to wrap this up here. Appreciate everybody tuning in today. Abby, Curtis, thank you also for kind of co-hosting with me and making sure we're all kind of on pace here. But appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, this is episode 26. We usually have a blog for it. We will have one. It will be kind of light because I don't think there will be a ton of resources there. But if you could let us know in your feedback, love to hear your kind of review of our first 25. Don't feel like you got to be gentle. You can tell us, hey, if we could get better anywhere, we're happy to hear constructive criticism. But hey, if you have ideas, as Abby said, I'd love to get them. Again, we can always be on the hunt, and this is a great way for us to network and just meet some really great people impacting retirees. So until next time, take care, and we'll catch you later.